So welcome to Mizuno video number 2, and this is where we're going to look at the driver, fairway and hybrids, the JPX One model that's launching this year. There's a new material for us to talk about, so plenty of exciting things to go into in this one. So there are two models of driver that Mizuno are launching. There's the JPX One and the One Select. Now, the bit that Mizuno have really been shouting about recently is there's a new material, there's something that no one has done before, and this is nanoalloy. And this is what this blue face is all about. Now, colored faces on drivers and composite materials we have seen before, but this is something that Mizuno have developed with a company called Toray, and Toray do really high-grade composite materials. You see them in some of the shafts that we see on the wall downstairs, the really top-end high-grade ones. Japanese made, very, very high spec. But what is it that nanoalloy actually is? Now, to make sure I get this right, I'm going to be reading off a script. My own one, but so this has been developed with Toray, and nanoalloy features microscopic polymer dispersion to produce a face that dynamically alters elasticity under impact. So what does that mean? Well, in principle, and the claim is that this is a material that stores and releases energy at impact, so more efficiently, creating more ball speed across the face. So essentially what it's saying is it's kind of like in essence, saying it's a smart face within reason. Now, I'm not saying that depending on where you hit it, that it's going to react accordingly, but it's a more elastic material, which means, whereas in the past we'd say, well, there's a little bit of give and kick that helps add a little bit of ball speed. This, to me, seems a bit more almost of tennis racket style, but the strings load and snap back a little bit more, which helps just to create more ball speed across the face. And this is really where they can't make the middle bit any faster, but in principle, off center, that can be improved. So by utilizing materials, which we're going to learn more about as the year goes on, I'm sure, it's allowing the face to retain elasticity all across the face rather than just in that center spot. So yes, there are going to be thick, thin face, variable face thickness elements that we've seen before, and that helps optimize ball speed in particular parts of the face. This new material is something that they are really excited about, and one of the claims is that in robot testing it has outperformed leading competitors for ball speed and carry from all impact locations. So this will be something that we're really excited to see how it performs in the fitting bays. Ball speed for different player styles, different abilities and different club head speeds. But it's something that anytime a new material comes out, the proof is in the pudding. It'll be really interesting to see how fast this actually is. So within the two models, the only other bit that they're not really talking about weight distribution an awful lot, and the framing of the head, the focus has really been on the face. And what they have got is it's pairs with a newly engineered Core Tech face. So Core Tech is about thick, thin, maximizing speed, thinning out in certain areas, and it's up to 0.35 millimeter thinner in certain locations on the face, which expands that core area, that kind of sweet spot area, and by actually a little bit over 15%. These are the numbers that are thrown out to us, but what it should mean is more forgiveness, more ball speed, low, high, heel, toe, more consistency of performance across the face. So there are two models, so the JPX One and the One Select. I'm going to start with the JPX One. This is a slightly bigger frame, a little bit more forgiving because there's a little bit more weight at the back, and that depth of head moves weight away from the face. So designed for a higher forgiveness profile, a little bit of a larger footprint for more stability, more center performance, and more straightness. Outside of that, they've not really said a lot about it, but ultimately, the One is the bigger model, more forgiveness. We then have the One Select. This is a more traditional tour style shape, a little bit more compact, so the weight sits a little less far back. So that means CG is a little further forward for lower spin. So it's designed more for that kind of tour style ball flight, little lower launch, little lower spin, slightly more fade burst as a setup as well. And ultimately that more compact shape that the tour players like to see, but not designed for as much forgiveness. So this won't give you as much off-center performance as the JPX One, but that compact shape and the fade burst is something that, not sitting closed is something that a lot of brands do in their kind of lower spin models, of which this is one. The one other element to this is that is a changeable weight on the back of the JPX One. So that adjustable back weight helps fine tuning at fitting. And in terms of loft options, the One Select is a 9° in right and left-handed and 10.5 in right hand only. And the JPX One is 9, 10.5 and 12, with the 10.5 being left-hand option as well. Loft options, loft adjustability is plus or minus 2 degrees, and that adjusts lie by plus or minus 1.5 as well. So the big story here is really about the face, that face material change. Ultimately, they're saying there's a forgiving and there's a low spin, but it's that face material, that new structure that they've created, which they're hoping to see Mizuno jump into the driver market and create a bit of noise, which they haven't necessarily done of late, but we'll see how this one performs. So we move on now to the fairway and the hybrid, and there's some similarities between the kind of structures of these heads. We're going to start with the fairway. So it's just a single model of fairway, the JPX One. And the key thing we're talking about here is that Cortex chamber, which is that channel in between behind the face and in front of that kind of main kind of sole plate on the bottom. So what that does is that allows the face to flex a little bit. So there's a little bit of give now. It's something we've seen with many companies, which allows the low part of the face to flex, which creates ball speed low on the face, which keeps height, basically keeps performance low on the face. But as you'll see from the shape of this, there's a little bit of progression toe and heel, so it's wider into the kind of the outer center section and then feeds out into the toe side and the heel, which is really about maximizing ball speed, heel and toe, as well as out the center. So a redefined Cortex chamber just varies that gap between the sole and the face, and therefore helps ball speed maintenance across the face. What we then get is wraparound composite crown. So again, about saving weight in the crown, take weight out of the crown, put it low in the head, particularly on fairway woods and hybrids. It's about getting that CG low, which collects the ball and picks it up and launches it well, and just helps get it feeling a little bit more solid at contact. Ultimately, when you're hitting a ball off the ground, low on the face has traditionally lost a lot of performance. So every single brand out there is doing a similar thing of, from Mizuno here, that composite crown, saving weight, getting it low in the head. Lowers the CG, raises the launch, drops the spin. We then get into a rather fun bit for you science and material geeks out there. We have the MAS1C or MAS1C steel face. It's a variable thickness on the fairway wood. And what is MAS1C steel, I hear you ask? Well, let me tell you, and I'm going to refer to my notes here because there are a lot of words here that I probably don't understand, but I know the different materials. So it is an ultra high strength steel. And it's made by adding cobalt, molybdenum, titanium and aluminium as age hardening elements to low carbon steel. So low carbon equals soft, but then these elements harden that material up. So it's a real mix of different alloys and properties in order to get maximum flexibility, maximum weight properties, maximum, the properties they're looking for from that material. It requires all those elements to be added together. You're not getting that from just one material. So it's a real, I wouldn't say hodgepodge, there's a real melting pot of different materials in order to get the exact properties required for that face. And because of the smaller size than the driver, this is why it's such a different material. The bigger size of the face on the driver means that there's more of that face that can flex. So with the fairway wood, we're looking at a much smaller face. So actually the properties required are very different, which is why you're seeing a different driver face to fairway face. Hope you enjoyed that one. So there's what they're calling a speed bevel sole. So you can see the channels cut in the sole here. This is all about refining turf interaction, and much as we looked at when we talked about the irons the other day, that kind of tri-sole grind, that back edge grind. These channels are all about keeping that center plate grounded, channeling any dirt and moisture out of the way there, so it kind of helps the club track through to the back of the ball for a clean contact and gets that sweet spot in the right spot on the face, so it gets into the bottom of the ball and gets the best contact possible. So it's kind of what I would call a mid-size head. There's a decent bit of depth to the head there, but that lighter crown enables to keep the depth, which gives off the tee confidence and consistency, with a low center of gravity, which applies to good off the ground contact as well. So it's not an overly intimidating looking head, quite a neat, clean shape, very simple head, something Mizuno have done well over the years, kept a very simple approach to their fairway woods. And all around, you've got the adjustability of the hosel as well. Plenty of loss. There's a 3T, a 3 wood, a 5 wood, a 7 wood, and a 9 wood in right hand, and a 3-wood and a 5-wood in the left hand, and all have the adjustability to them. So quite a few options, again going to that high loft option that a lot of the other brands have done as well. Lofts are adjustable plus or minus 2 degrees, and lie plus or minus 1.5, exactly as the driver sleeve. So onto the hybrid. So a very, very similar principle to construction, same sort of design philosophy as the fairway woods, where we're looking at lighter crown, that composite crown, really to optimize weight position, get it low, get it down the bottom of the head so that it gets into the bottom of the ball and helps with launch and spin, low center of gravity, high launch, low spin, and good distance, but also playability when it comes to the hybrid. There's a waffle crown structure. So what that means is it's got lots of thick and thin spots. So like a waffle you would have at some point in your diet. It's got kind of channels cut, squares cut in and out. So what is it? Thick and thin. So you need those thick ribs for rigidity, but we're also trying to save weight. So the thinner aspects, they're kind of essentially cutting into them, milling into it to save as much weight as possible without compromising the structural integrity of the crown. But that saves weight, allows them to put weight on the bottom, again, helps that CG position. So really about playability. And we've got the uniform thickness version of the Mas 1C face. So it's that same mix of materials, but instead of being thick and thin, it's more of a uniform thickness across the face. Again, with the launch and the spin properties we're looking to achieve from this, it doesn't need that change in face thickness. It's also, I could pick this up next to it, it's that little bit of a smaller face as well. So again, that change is required because there, quite frankly, isn't necessarily the space to get that progression in face thickness without compromising performance in some areas of the face compared to what we want to achieve from this head, which isn't quite as distance oriented as the fairway would. Got a similar channel in the bottom there, that's a speed sole design, same channels cut as in the fairway wood, but obviously it's a much smaller sole. But again, your Cortec chamber, the variable thickness, heel and toe, as we did the fairway wood, about optimizing ball speed across the face as well. So many of the properties are exactly the same, just on a smaller scale being the hybrid. And in terms of loft options, we've got in right hand 19, 22, 25 and 28, so 3, 4, 5 and 6 hybrid option, and then in left hand the 22 and 25, so 4 and 5. So again, a reasonable amount of options there for you. This one sits in very much that mid-size, so it's a little bit bigger than some of the other brands that have more of an iron-like hybrid, but it's not quite as oversized and wood-like as, take a Titleist GT1 for example. Very much sits in the middle, nice, clean, simple shape, visually quite appealing, and we'll see how that performs in the bay as well. So thank you for staying with us through that product preview on the woods that Mizuno are launching, the JPX One range. If you like this one, check out the previous video for the Mizuno MP Fly Iron, the M13 and 15 irons, launched a couple of days ago in this series of product previews that we're doing for the start of 2026. So thanks a lot for watching. Check us out in the next video coming soon.